What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Real Estate Today, the first episode of 2024.
Whoop, whoop, whoop.
Yeah, baby. Happy New Year. Happy New
You
Year.
made it.
This is my prediction is going to be an surprisingly epic, awesome, and amazingly productive and profitable year. Way more than people are expecting there. Or at least we're going to make sure that happens for ourselves. And I hope the rest of the industry follows suit on that one. So, again, just for those who are newer to our show, I'm one of your hosts, Mr. Jeff Beggins. I got my brother
Greg Beggins.
and our brother from another mother,
Mike Puma.
Mike Puma. So, year 33 in the industry now, rolling into 2024. About 65,000 transactions closed. Probably, I was doing math, probably about 14 billion in sales now. And a lot of business over the years and a lot of ups and downs and sideways and all. So, a couple topics.
Market times, ups and downs, and foreclosures, and short sales, and recessions, and depressions, and all that other stuff too.
Industry pivots and all kinds of things that we're going through again right now.
We're going to see more and more this year.
That's right. So, we were just chatting a little bit on this one. So, new year, new goals. Everybody's coming out with the gate with their business plans, and they're fired up, and they're eating better, and they've walked a couple days this year so far, and they're excited about what they're going to do. And let's talk about goals for a second, because there's a slippery slope, and it's a problem because they're exciting and they're depressing at the same time, right? And we were chatting earlier about what's realistic, and let's start thinking about how much income we're lucky in this industry because we truly can go earn what we feel like earning, what we're willing to put into it, and it short circuits a lot of minds. We were just kind of talking about an exercise we were doing with some of the agents about cars and not like materialistic thing, but what does a very comfortable lifestyle look like, right? And the idea was coming with a car. What does a car cost if you finance it? What does a house cost? What do vacations cost? And what are your budgets for the whole year? And we'll go through the example later, but let's go higher end on this one. And for Craig and Mike, I want you guys to comment on this. What's the challenge? Thinking big, dreaming bigger, having the mindset shift you back, and having the resistance in there. And how do we overcome that? I mean, we want big things. We want to do well, but we have that pullback from reality and all these issues. So let's talk about the challenges inherent with big goals.
Well, I just had a thought on the baseline. It depends on where you're starting from, right? I'm the old guy in the group now at 55, and I'm fortunate that I don't have any debt. So I don't have to worry about that. But I look at my daughter who's got student loans, and I look at other people that have other debt and credit card debt. And I've got friends that are thinking about filing bankruptcy because their debts are piled up. So I think it depends on the base level where you're starting at, if you can dream big, right? I think you have to dream big no matter what, but you have to understand where you are first, and you've got to strive and struggle. Not struggle, that's a bad word, but you've got to get to a place where things are easier, right? Does that make sense?
What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, right now, one of the biggest problems in this country is student debt. I mean, interest rates on student debt are high. The government is now collecting them again. So some people can't qualify. We were talking to our salesman yesterday. There's 2 apartments that just opened up in the town where I'm at, in Apollo Beach. And a 3-bedroom, 2-bath is $2,800 a month for an apartment. And then there's a 4-story walk up across the street from our office, and that's $2,200 a month for a 2-bedroom apartment. Holy cow, that's a lot of money, right? When 3 years ago you could buy a house for $200,000 at a 3% interest rate and have a $1,200 mortgage payment. It's a different world, right? So I know where you're going, and I want to go there with you. But thinking big, I think we have to retract, like your wife said, and say we're going to freak some people out talking about this. But
I don't think.
Go ahead.
I just don't think it's about necessarily thinking big or thinking bigger. I think it's thinking differently. Right? That's at least, like, for me, that's the context, because I think when you say think bigger, I think the reason it short circuits most people's brains is because not everyone, like the second you say bigger, they're thinking bigger home, bigger car, more expensive this, more, and it's not necessarily that, right? It's thinking differently, thinking happier, but at this, and that's the biggest thing. It can't be, in my mind, it's not about figuring out how to elevate your lifestyle necessarily. It's figuring out how to live a happier lifestyle. What I think most people fail to realize is that whether it's buying the big car or the bigger house, whether it's paying off the debt, whether the actual thing doesn't really matter, but it involves income, right? If my dream, like if sitting around for 7 hours a day and playing with my dog is what makes me happy, awesome. Then let's figure out a way to make that happen. But the reality is, I still have a mortgage, you still have car payments, you still have liability that you have to cover. So it still takes income. So if that's truly my dream, like truly, like is like hang out all day, be retired, and play with my dog, is that possible in this industry? Yes. But I think it starts with that. It starts with, and that's the challenge, in my opinion. That's the hardest part. The hardest part is not necessarily thinking bigger, it's thinking differently, and it's really being honest about what makes you happy. Forget everything else. Like, what's going to make you excited to wake up in the morning? And if that has to be the priority, that has to be the goal. And if you figure that out, maybe it is the big house, maybe it's the yacht, maybe it whatever. It could be materialistic, but it doesn't have to be. But I think that's where everyone's brain goes. But if you can figure out what makes you happy, like truly makes you happy, and then come to the realization that, okay, what does it take for me to be able to do that every day? And it means that you've got to be at a position financially where everything else is taken care of so that you can only focus on that thing that makes you happy. Then you're going to go to work to put those things in to have a plan to get to where you want to be. But that's you clearly identifying where you're going, right? That's putting it in the GPS. Now, the route that gets you there may change a little bit, and there's a lot of different routes probably to get to that destination, but you gotta be honest about what that destination is and what makes you happy. And I think that's the hardest part for most people.
Well, that's kind of the goal behind our primary aim, right? Which is a hard thing for almost everybody to wrap their head around.
Well, I think it's the next level, right? Because and that's why we use that word so often, like the next level you, the website that we use and all, right? Because it's the next level in your life. If your student loan are burdensome, your next level is to lighten the load of your student debt, right? It's not necessarily the Bali vacation, right? It's your now if you've ever taken the Bali vacation, maybe now it's a private jet charter to Costa Rica, right? Whatever your next level is, and if you've got a cool car that's paid off, congrats. Maybe the next level is a safer car, right? And that might cost a little bit more. There's a next level for that. Maybe your next level is investment property. Maybe it's paying down your mortgage. Maybe it's investing for your kids' savings accounts, right? So everyone has their own next level at all, right? So I think that's one of the issues. Where this came up was I was doing an exercise with some of the agents yesterday over at the Gulf Beach offices, right? And we were going through the visualization of this coming year. And I went through a couple questions with it. I'll just kind of go through because I think it's interesting. And I said, all right, for this year, let's just talk high level for a second. Let's talk about where you're living. What does a nice home cost all in? Like, what does it cost you monthly to live in? And just listened to the thing. And on average, it's about $5,000, right? $5,000 house payment is there, right? And then what is a nice car going to cost you all in, right? With your gas and your insurance, all that stuff, $1,000 a month, right? What kind of vacations? So you say you have a family, you want to take a few vacations a year, total all that up. What is that going to cost over the course of the year? Nice one, right? Like really nice. And of course, there's different definitions of that, but the number came out 20 grand, right? And then food, expenses, entertainment and stuff is 25 grand, right? Some miscellaneous stuff that needs to. Then we got to 180 grand, right? And then we said, all right, now you have taxes, so gross that up, and the number came to 240 grand a year to live. That's not caviar Rolls Royces. That's just a nice, comfortable, very nice lifestyle, right? And that's $240,000 a year, or right, $20,000 a month. Now, in our industry, in our marketplaces, most of our marketplaces, that's 2 closed transactions a month to get that lifestyle. And then we went a little bit further. Most of you are real estate agents watching this one, and we broke Q1 down into 13 weeks. So we have 13 weeks between now and the end of March. And what we do is we break it down to kind of connections of people you need to talk with. So what we said is we need to go on one qualified appointment. If we did go on one qualified appointment for the next 13 weeks, right? Now, what's a qualified appointment? If they have to answer yes to these 3 questions. Do you have to sell or buy a home? Have to. Not kind of interested in doing it. Do you have to? And what do we mean by that? Is it a court ordered divorce? Are you getting married coming up? Do you have a kid coming? Did you get a job transfer? Did Aunt Susie something happen and you got in a house you need to sell? Right? Something happened that causes life to happen at that point. So do you have to buy or sell? Do you know where you're moving to? Do you have a hot time frame to sell that in or buy? So those are the 3 definitions of a good qualified appointment. So if you spent Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, if you had to, Saturday, and if you had to, Sunday, talking with people, social, whatever it may be, just interacting with enough people to get one person to listen to you, right, about selling or buying a piece of property a week. And you did that once a week for the next 13 weeks, you're probably going to get a 70% close ratio. You're going to piss some of them off. They're going to go with their cousin, whatever it may be. 70% closing ratio is 9 transactions. 9 transactions is $90,000. That's 30 grand a month. We just talked that lifestyle was 20 grand a month. And now we just talked about earning 30. So then we said, what are you going to do with that extra 10? Said, well, the ultimate goal is to have enough income from other investments to cover your lifestyle, right? So you don't have to work, right? That's like the ultimate American dream, right? To have enough investments covering your lifestyle so you have some pressure off yourself. So if you stacked up an extra $10,000 a month throughout the whole year, at the end of the year, you use that as a 30% down payment on a new piece of property, you can buy a $400,000 investment property or a couple smaller ones or whatever it would be. But now you're building your investment portfolio. And we talked about buying them on 15-year mortgages. So 16 years from now, you take a $400,000 house at 3 to 5% normal appreciation over 15 years. That's well over $1 million, right? So now you have a free and clear $1 million asset this year. Do it again next year, do it again next year, do it again next year. And we said, how many of you still plan to be doing this 15 years from now? And pretty much every hand went up. Imagine having a $15+ million net worth to pass on to your kids, right? Just on your real estate assets while you're living a nice lifestyle going through. And it all goes back to finding one person a week that is going to be buying and selling anyway. But we have to find them, search them out, and go talk with them.
Here's the problem, though.
Yeah.
Here's the problem. What is the very first question you ask what's the very first question an agent's supposed to ask? You already said it. What is the very first question you're supposed to ask when you meet a buyer or seller? To figure out if they're real or not.
When do you have to buy or sell?
Do you have to buy or sell? And if the answer to that question is no, what's the problem?
They don't incubate them properly.
Okay. But here's the problem. Agents and people are doing the exact same thing. The real question is, do you have to make $240,000 a year? And if the answer is no, most of them aren't going to do it. In the same way that if you don't have to move, most of them aren't going to do it, at least not right away. And that's the hard part. The hard part is that for most people, if they are not in a position where they have to do something, right? You joke all the time. If your arm was going to fall off by Friday if you didn't get a deal, right? Like you knew, like you're in the freaking Saw movie and you're in a trap and your arm's going to get ripped off on Friday. If you're going to figure out how to get a deal.
Right.
You're going to start calling every family member you know saying, hey, listen, do something with me. You're going to figure it out.
Yep.
The problem is it's unfortunate because it shouldn't be, but most people operate by force, not by will. And the reality is, if they don't have to do it, they're not going to.
Well, that's where it evolved to, because the conversation went deeper and to that towards versus away from motivation, right? And I was talking to a couple people specifically in the room, and I said, I met your kids before, right? Nice kids, right? Do you want to give them a nice lifestyle, Or are you okay if they have a shitty lifestyle and they don't have any real good opportunities in life and they grow up and just kind of fighting for life, right? How do you want to be? What do you want to do for your kids? And she's like, what are you talking about? I said, well, what kind of options are you giving your kids right now? What are their options? What are their options for vacations? What are their options for education? What are their options for experiences? What are their options for safety? Right? I mean, these are real conversations, right? Now, is there a difference between a 5-star crash rated vehicle and a 1-star crash rated vehicle? Let's be honest for a second. Is there?
Oh,
Right?
for sure.
Okay. So, and is there a difference in cost in those two vehicles?
Typically, yep.
Yeah. Is there a difference? Let's be honest. Is there a difference in education between certain institutions and other institutions? Yes.
Sure.
Is there a cost difference between those two types of institutions? Is there a
Yep.
cost difference in safety in neighborhoods? Right?
Sure.
Is there a cost difference between safety and neighborhoods? Right? All these things start going into creating the leverage that you're talking about, Puma, on it. And sometimes we need to have that leverage in there. Right? Once somebody else was talking about how badly they really wanted to own a golf cart. I said, well, I hope every time you see a golf cart driving down the road, a siren goes off in your head that just screams out, you suck, you're a loser, where's yours? Right? Because they have one, you don't. Right? So and that exercise was, it depends, right? What is your motivation factor? Is it the feeling and freedom of your hair blowing in the wind with your favorite song on in your golf cart cruising to the beach? That's going to drive you to get the golf cart, or is it the sake that you feel like a loser because you could get one but you didn't? Right. So, is it towards motivated? Is it away from motivated? What's the mixture combination of those?
Well,
And when you look
I
at your
think
kid,
the biggest group, the biggest segment, honestly, are the people that are pretty comfortable already, right? If I'm living in a very bad neighborhood where there's gunshots going off every night, I'm gonna be in a position where it's like, oh shit, I've got to get out of this,
right?
And my back's against the wall in my head at that point, and I'm getting out, right? The problem isn't necessarily that. Those people, if you're facing foreclosure, you got a gun to your head. You're pushing out, right? You're doing everything you can to get yourself out of that situation. The hard part is the person who's making $100,000 a year, who's my kid's school's pretty good, vacations are cool. That's the person who's living that's like, all right, what's next, right? Yes, you're comfortable, but you've become comfortable being comfortable. What's going to make you uncomfortable? What's going to push you, and why, right? And that's the person that I'm in my head is really the challenge, because that's where their only way you do it is by getting true clarity on what is going to make you happy. Because once you do that, then you'll get committed to it, and then you will do those things. And that is so different for every person. That's why I say it's really hard, because it's just, there's so many variables in there that are going to drive that. And I think so many times we hear someone giving the advice, which is good advice, but then we latch on to the specific example that they're giving and like, well, that's not me. It's like, no, forget that. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's a yacht, a car, a boat, a house, a trip. It doesn't matter what it is. You got to figure out what it is for you, though. Right? And that's the hard part, because we bullshit ourselves.
Well, you don't have to. Take your example. You got 100, even 100,000 combined household. You live comfortably, right? The kids are fed,
Sure.
Right? The education is fine. The car is running. You don't have to do anything different. And don't, right? Don't. But don't have, you say you have a hunger for something more, but do you really? Right? And if you really.
And that's the point. That's where what I get pissed about is where the ambition coming out of somebody's mouth doesn't match the actions that they're taking. If you sit there and tell me you want more, and that ambition is going to be put out there in the world, then you better back that shit up with actions that map to it. And if you don't, then shut up, because you don't really want it. I mean, that's the reality of it. You don't. So be honest about it. And I think it comes back to not lying to ourselves. We bullshit ourselves. We tell ourselves we want shit we don't want. We tell ourselves we're going to do something we're not going to do. That's the hard part. If you look at the agents who we have that are really successful, it's because they've simplified it down and they know what they're willing to do, but more importantly, they know what they're not willing to do. We have agents that know that door knocking works. They also know that they're never going to do it and they're not going to go to more than 10 homes. So they don't waste their time doing it. But instead, they figure out, what am I going to do? Am I willing to sit there and make phone calls? Am I sit there willing to send text messages? Am I willing to load in my database correctly and leverage that? What am I willing to do? And then I'm going to go all in on that.
Yeah, but yes, you're 100% right. But until you find a spark reason, they're not going to even do that.
No, they won't. You're right.
So what do you do? What do you do with that? What do you now? This is 97% of the world, by the way, that we're talking about. That says, it would be cool if, but that's as far as the dreams go, right? And that's it. Yeah, honey, it would be nice if we had blank, but would-be's never happen, right? God, we really should take that vacation. Look at this Instagram picture that Barbara went on. Wouldn't it be great if we could do that with the kids, right? And then that's as far as that conversation goes. Why? Why?
Well, Tony Robbins says it best. You got to create massive leverage. But most people don't do that because it's not important. Or maybe they're just not exposed to it.
Is it not important, or is it that, what is it? Because I think they would argue that I really do want that. But do they?
Yeah, well, to Mike's point, do they want it or are they willing to work for it? We're not saying it's like the law of attraction. You just say, I want it, and then it happens.
No, you got to get your ass out and work.
Here, right. You got to put the car in drive, and you got to put the destination in the GPS.
And especially in this industry that most of you watching are in, right? What an opportunity to say, hey, look, if you needed to pull 50 grand down in the next 60 days, good luck finding another industry that's legal that you could do that in, right? For real. And go find the nice, expensive neighborhood and find out who's thinking about selling in that neighborhood next. And there you go. You got your money. It's that easy. Now you have to have some skill and some tools behind that once you identify the person, right? But the reality of it is, you got a brand, you got a company, you got support behind you. You just got to find the people, right? So
I think it's hard because it really does take you. There's a requirement to figure out what makes you tick. Like I was actually got in a debate with a friend the other day, and we were talking about our local baseball league, and he was like, you know what, I just can't do rec baseball anymore. The participation trophies drive me nuts. And I said, I actually have a different take on that. He's like, what do you mean? He's like, it's making our kids soft. Everybody gets a trophy. And I said, hold on now. You got to understand that if my son is out there playing, my son's not out there playing for the trophy. He doesn't give a shit whether he gets a trophy or not. My son's playing because he loves the game of baseball. But little Johnny might be out there, and he was scared to come out, and he doesn't really love baseball, but he committed to doing it. He said he's going to do it. So his mom is pushing him to play, try something new, step outside of his comfort box. And that trophy at the end that he gets to put in his room might be the very thing that gets him to take that leap, to try it out, to see if it is for him. His motivation point is different than my son. So you have to understand that the trophy doesn't really matter, because it's going to motivate some, it's not going to motivate others. So what's the harm in doing it? If it's going to keep little Johnny interested enough to try something new, step outside of his comfort box, I don't have a problem with it, right? Now, what I have a problem with is if my son is out there who says he loves the game but is only going so he can get the trophy, that's a conversation I need to have, because that's a self-awareness issue with him, where it's like, hey, dude, what's actually motivating you? Do you really love the game of baseball, or are you only doing it to get this medal at the end? Right? But that's a different conversation. My point being here is that you've got to figure out what your driver is. And for some, it's the trophy. For some, it's the game. Right? For me, at the end of the day, I care far more about, I'm too competitive to care about anything else. Like at the end of the day, you could say, hey, we're not going to ever sell this company for anything, but we're going to be the biggest. Cool. I just want to beat the shit out of everybody else. So for me, like, that's my driver, right? It's not necessarily financial. Sure, finances are great. That's awesome, and we'll have that too. But I care about winning. I care about growth. Like that's what drives me more than anything else. But that may be different for somebody else, right? Somebody else may say, "I'll go to the end of the earth as long as there's an extra zero at the end of that check," and that's cool too. But you just got to figure out what is the driver of you. What's gonna make you tick, and that's the hard part. I think a lot of people can't really dissect themselves enough to get there.
And it's pain or pleasure. To your point, it's the trophy or it's the feeling that you get. Like, is it like circling back to finish that loop of the story? One of the agents I was talking about with her kids, I said, at the end of the day, right, when you pull into your garage to go home, right, you have a choice to make. You've got your kids at your home, and you either did your best to give them the best life, right, which is her driver, or you sucked today and you didn't, right, and there's no other choice. And your business allows you to sit in the car and make 3 extra contacts before you go in. And then why don't you ask your kid, your son, to ask you, did you do what you're supposed to do today? First thing when you walk in the door, right?
Ouch.
Right. And then you have to answer that question. No, you're not important enough to me and I didn't. Or hell yeah, I did because I love you. Right. Now that motivation worked for her. Right. Might not necessarily work for the other person. So to your point, Mike, what is the driver for you? It's the trophy or it's the avoidance of no trophy, right? It's the feeling of success or it's avoiding the feeling of failure, right? It's different for every one of us. We have unique DNA makeups that allow us to be driven by some combination of all of those levers, right? But until you figure out what it is for yourself, every exercise is just simply an exercise, and you're going to be exactly where you are right now because what you're earning right now is exactly what you need to earn just to get by, right? That's it. That's why you're earning what you're earning because that's what your life has demanded, and that's you're only reaching up to the potential that requires your life to have. Now, every once in a while, you'll get a cool idea, but unless you back it up with this leverage, positive or negative, you're never going to increase your output to get to that next level because it's uncomfortable as hell until you get there and maintain that. Then that becomes your new norm, and then you're going to level off to that level, and that might be it for you, and that's great. Or you might have another idea that says, nah, no, I'm going to go this way is where I'm going to go, and that's uncomfortable as hell too. And you got to push through all that doubt, fear, and anxiety till you get up to that level, and that level becomes your new norm. And if you stay there, that's cool. Or you say, screw that, look at that, I want that now, right? And that could be health, relationships, physical, financial, car, jet, whatever it may be, at each of these levels. But you got to be honest with your current situation. And if that's good enough, love it, man. Own it. Tell everybody else to screw off. It's not up to them to change your life, right? If you love the way it is, stay there, maintain it, right? But if there's something else that thinks it might be kind of cooler, then go all in and commit to it because you know it works. You know, you're in this business, you know what to do. You know who to say what to, you know how to say it, and you know what you need to do. There's no magic formula, there's no pixie dust. You're asking us to get out and talk to more people, right? That's it. And you can do that at Starbucks, at a bar, at a networking event, on social media, door knocking, postcards. Like it's easy, right? It's freaking easy, right? The only thing you have to do is battle yourself as to which level you're at. Right? So there you go.
There you go.
There's a little deep dive into all the screwed up parts of our brain.
Yeah, we never
But
said we were normal.
but hey, imagine this is our heads. This is our heads all the time. Imagine our poor agents every day, every day, every day.
Constant
Exposure.
and never-ending improvement.
But that's empower, educate, and encourage, and it's our job to figure out what makes each of the people tick that we're fortunate to have the privilege of working with, right? So that's that. So takeaway is for you is to spend some time figuring out what it is for you guys, and just make this year the best year that you could possibly make it for you, and screw anybody else's opinions because they don't matter at the end of the day. For you and your loved ones, what's going to make you fired up and actually enjoy this life and put a big ass smile on your face. That's our first episode of life in 2024.
2024.
So let's start off with the topic of dream bigger, but not necessarily dream bigger unless you've got a reason to dream bigger.
Yeah.
So I think the goal is to find a reason to dream bigger.
Yep. That's it.
Yep.
Because
Reach out.
if you take it back to, but if you take we're in Hillsborough and Pinellas County. What's the average wage of a worker in Hillsborough and Pinellas County?
Average median income
Yeah,
is
55,000, 60,000 maybe.
Yeah, 60 grand probably.
And you're talking about making 30 grand a month. That's a hard thing to wrap your head around, and until you understand that, we do our awards at our monthly sales meeting, and we got agents making $50,000-$60,000 a month.
yeah, consistently. We got one over on the beach is consistently doing 6, 7, 8 deals a month, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But that's the lifestyle. But those are the choices that made her decide that she wants a next level of her life, right? This is what she wanted to own. This is what she wanted to do from investments. This is where she wanted to go on vacations. This is what all this is going to cost. This is what she wants to go drive. This is what she wants to feel, right? And that was it. But without those previous decisions, she would not do the energy, expend the energy to go make that happen.
No.
And a lot of people,
even if you're not in the industry, though, there's still a lot of ways to raise income, because you have a lot of people that might be at a 9 to 5 that are making 60 grand a year that say, oh, well, I can't make 10 grand a check. No, but you can buy a house that produces another $1,000 a month in income. And then that builds equity, and then you use that equity to buy another house and then another house. So you could get it to a point where all of a sudden you got 10 homes, right, paying you $1,000 a month. Now all of a sudden you're making an extra 10 grand a month, and you didn't even really use, if any, of your own money, right? Because you can use equity to buy those properties, put the money down. So there's a lot of strategy that could go into increasing your income. The question is, do you need to increase your income, right? And again, it comes back to, like, if you can truly look in the mirror and say, I am pumped with my current lifestyle. I love it. I got everything I need. This is it. I'm living every day. I'm pumped. Awesome. Don't do anything. Just figure out what you need to do to keep that going and do it, because that's what it's about. But for 99% of us, we like a lot of our life. We don't like everything. So I would push you to say, okay, what parts don't you like? Like, if you could change one thing today about your everyday life, what would it be? Let's start there. Let's figure out what that is. And then what does that cost? What is the ramifications cost-wise of that change? Because I don't give a shit what it is. There's going to be a financial cost somewhere that needs to get paid. What is that? And then build a plan to get there. And it may take a little bit. May take a short amount of time, right? But that's where I personally would start. And I think it's just taking those little steps then. But you got to know where you're routing your GPS to.
great advice. Great advice. Let us know what you guys think about this one. Hit a comment under this. And if you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe. We'll be shooting these out every week for you and got a lot more content coming on our BE3 channel, baby. So thanks for watching Real Estate Today, guys. We'll see you next episode.
Happy New Year.
See ya.